We'll just do it from a different. Okay, we're recording.
Yay! All right. Welcome to the Love Rising, everyone. Today, we are continuing our month of motherhood. And I'm super excited because last week, of course, we spoke with my sister, who's amazing and so knowledgeable. And she actually referred us to our guest today, which I've heard about our guest because she's a good friend of my sister's. And she just keeps saying, you guys have to get together. So we're super excited to chat with her today, hear all about a ton of knowledge that she has, and share with you guys all about exploring the fourth trimester. So let me just give you guys kind of a little background on Karla, and I'm going to butcher her last name, but Arredondo?
Yes.
It's definitely not as smooth as she gave it to me, but I try. And so she's originally from Mexico, moved to the U.S. when she was 9, grew up in Houston. She always knew that she wanted to get into healthcare, but it really took her a while to... You know what? Can I pause it, you guys?
Mm-hmm.
So I am thinking. All right. So welcome to the Love Rising, everyone. Today we are continuing our month of motherhood, and I'm really excited to be talking to our guest. She's actually a good friend of my sister's, who you guys heard from last week. And of course, we got so much knowledge, and she was so adorable and fun to talk to. And so I'm really excited to chat with Karla today because Melissa immediately recommended her, and they're all kind of in the birthing scene down in Texas, and she's really knowledgeable. So really excited to hear all that she has to share with us. So I'm just going to brief you on her professional background, and then she's going to share her story with us. So Karla she has her master's of occupational therapy from Texas Tech University, and she spends a lot of time between an outpatient pediatric clinic. She also writes for a local magazine, and she's also a stay-at-home mom. So I kind of gave you the real brief version. I'm super excited for her to share her journey and kind of where she's gathered all this knowledge and just her passion for what we're going to talk about today, which is the fourth trimester. I'm really excited because it's been interesting. I've said the fourth trimester to a few people, and they were like, huh? They didn't even know about it. And I feel like it's kind of something that doesn't get as much importance or as much attention as it should. So Karla's going to give us all the details on that today. We're super excited. So welcome, Karla.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes. And please give us your journey, how you got to where you are today.
Yes. So I am originally from Mexico. I moved to the U.S. when I was 9, and I grew up in Houston, Texas. So ever since I was little, I kind of knew that I wanted to go into the health professions, but I was kind of all over the place. You know, when you're little and you think about health professions, you think, oh, I'm going to be a doctor or I'm going to be a nurse. But later on, kind of through volunteering, I started learning what I liked more. And so it finally all these volunteering hours finally helped me discover what truly fits with my personality, and that's occupational therapy. So that's what I'm doing. My first job after grad school was in pediatrics, and it still is. I'm in a pediatric outpatient clinic. And then I was pregnant 2 years ago. So this kind of my pregnancy journey and my childbirth experiences and living in South Texas made me realize all the information and all the education that is not being given to women as protocol. I had a very positive experience, and I believe it's largely due to my own kind of proactiveness in seeking information and reading books and going to childbirth classes and getting informed and knowing that there are different options for birthing, not just hospitals. But that also made me realize that not all women have access to this information, and not all doctors are talking to women about their options, or even asking what kind of birth they want, what is the environment, or what do they envision that experience to be like. So it it made me feel frustrated, and it made me feel also just kind of disappointed in the system. And I remember those first few weeks after I had my baby, kind of sitting in the rocking chair, nursing my baby in the middle of the night, and these thoughts kept coming to my mind, like, what can I do? Maybe I could do something in women's health. Maybe, it would be really nice to offer this and this and this. So these thoughts just kept coming and coming until I finally said, hey, I could really do this. I could really go into women's health. And so that is how Feminine was born. And so I think I'm the only women's health occupational therapist here in Texas, which is great, but it's also a challenge because I'm the only one here and I don't have a mentor to turn to. But it's great, and I'm connecting with a lot of other women who are doing this, and Melissa is one of them, of course, but we knew each other since I was pregnant.
Amazing. So yeah, no kidding. You go, girl. You're the only one in Texas.
Well, South Texas, in my region. Yeah, there are other women in other parts of Texas.
Oh, that is so cool. And, it's been really fun to do this month of motherhood because it is so fascinating how it's something that really did come up. This passion really arose when you were pregnant or a new mom. And so as we're can you dive in a little bit deeper and maybe explain to our listeners what the fourth trimester is?
Yes. So the fourth trimester refers to the first 3 months following childbirth. It's a time when the body is asking to slow down, to rest, and allow for recovery. It's also a time when mom and baby need to really bond and to honor that symbiotic relationship where mom is nourishing baby and establishing breastfeeding, and at the same time with skin to skin contact and nursing, the baby is helping mom's body regulate hormonal levels. It's also helping with emotional wellness and all that. So the fourth trimester is something I learned that nobody tells us about. We hear about pregnancy. We hear, maybe the only thing we hear about after childbirth has to do with breastfeeding. But I think most of us are at a shock after childbirth when we realize what our bodies feel like. What is kind of left after childbirth. And I say that because it really feels like your body is this foreign thing. You don't recognize it. And then some of us come out of childbirth with injuries, with difficulties breastfeeding, with difficulties just doing everyday things. Everything is so much harder. And at the same time, we're learning to keep this baby alive and happy and getting to know this baby, and we don't know what to do with ourselves. And I feel that the fourth trimester is not honored and respected here as much as in other countries like Latin America and Asia. So yeah, it's this very delicate but important period that we're not paying a lot of attention to. And there's this great book, and I'll talk about it. I'll make a reference to it throughout this podcast. It's Kimberly Ann Johnson's, and the book is called The Fourth Trimester. And I really recommend it to all moms, pregnant moms who already had babies, whether they just gave birth or whether their babies are already older. It's still very, very, very useful information.
That's so great. Can you send me that link so I can link it in the show notes?
Yes.
Like to the book? Oh, awesome. So I love that you talked about honoring and like respecting. And I think that, I don't have children, but I've watched my sister. I'm very close with my sister, and I've watched her go through 2 pregnancies, 2 fourth trimesters. And there is so much healing that needs to happen. And just like you said, there's so much growth. The amount of things that are going on in the fourth trimester, like when you just laid them out for us, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's something that is mind blowing that we don't really think about. And so, could you kind of go into how we can honor and respect that fourth trimester as we're healing?
Yeah, so I'll start with what moms can do, what we can do for ourselves. So like I was saying, the only thing we typically hear about regarding the postpartum period has to do with breastfeeding. And even that topic is barely scratched on the surface. You know, we hear things like, be sure you get a good latch. Breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. Breastfeeding is beautiful. It's so easy. It's cheaper than buying formula. You'll lose all the baby weight if you breastfeed. And I really, really dislike this one because the focus shouldn't be at all on body weight and image. But anyway, that's another topic. In my personal experience and in my experience as a clinician working with women, it is really common to hear from new moms, like I was saying, just how shocking this period after childbirth can be, because nobody warns us about anything. And so we can begin to honor the healing process after childbirth by recognizing that our bodies need rest. And this is so important. Slowing down and resting is crucial for healing and recovery, and also to bond with our babies, to establish breastfeeding, and for our emotional well-being. Secondly, and I think this one I learned the hard way, and you will hear why, and maybe you'll even identify with some of these things. But we also need to recognize that we need help and accept help from our support system. When I was pregnant, I thought, yeah, my husband and I got this. We will figure it out. We don't need people to come over and stay for weeks. It's okay. You know, we didn't want to bother anyone. And I think also my tendency to be independent and my identity with being sort of, you know, like a modern woman made me feel that I could and that I should figure this out on my own, that I should be able to do this on my own. You know, it seemed to me like it was kind of an old school thing to have your female family relatives be here and help you out and those sort of things. And I was wrong. I was very wrong. The process after childbirth is one that is timeless. And Kimberly Ann Johnson really highlights this in her book, and I love the way she does it. The process after childbirth doesn't follow or doesn't depend on trends. It calls for feminine wisdom and loving care so that we can first heal and recover and thrive as women and in our transition as new mothers. This is really universal. Now, my advice or what I would kind of say as far as our support systems and how they can honor this period after childbirth is kind of think about and remember that we don't value care and nurture for mom after childbirth as much here in America as other countries, like I was saying, in Asia and Latin America. So having a support system of other women supporting the new mother is so beneficial and undervalued. We face many barriers around this. The first one being a lot of us don't live in our hometowns anymore. And so there is a geographical gap between maybe our moms or other female relatives. There are also societal barriers. The fourth trimester calls for 3 months of rest and nurture for mom, and who can really take that much time off from work and who gets paid family leave here in America. Not a lot of us do. I didn't get paid family leave. We can also begin reaching out to our moms. We can reach out to our mom friends because they've been through it. They know exactly what you're going through. And I've also learned after having a baby that moms really do unite and help each other and support each other because nobody understands what we've been through but other moms. We can reach out to close aunts and local doulas too. Some doulas specialize or provide services specifically for the postpartum period, so that when the time comes, you already have your team ready to go and help you. Now, help can take many shapes during this period. It could be help around the house. It could be cooking nutrient-dense and warm meals. And I highlight warm meals because that's really, really necessary with the processes going on after childbirth and what the postpartum body needs. Wrapping your belly the first few weeks to support your organs. keeping you peaceful company so you're not alone. And this is very important for our emotional well-being. And maybe just watching the baby so you can take a shower, this is, I don't know if you've heard this, but they could also just restock your fridge with frozen pads for your tender perineum. So after childbirth, sometimes you have a tear or an episiotomy. And one thing our childbirth educator recommended was freezing pads, your menstrual pads, kind of soaking them with water a little bit, putting them in the freezer, and then after childbirth, when you have a tender area in your perineum, and putting these on really, really soothes the area. And it sounds funny, but this is totally normal and very useful after childbirth, and just having someone to restock those would be really nice. Or even washing the pumping devices so that you're ready to go on your next session, and so many other things. And then for health professionals, so this is where it's more difficult, of course. Now, I really feel that most health professionals lack sufficient education about the fourth trimester, and so they don't address this at all during pregnancy appointments or even after childbirth. Now, this is more of a long-term issue, but getting healthcare professionals who see pregnant women on board with and ready to talk about and educate on what to expect after childbirth, how to take care of ourselves, and how to take care of any injuries or scars is a good start. I hear this a lot. Women get sent home after a C-section with minimal information on how to take care of their C-section scars. And then with regards to breastfeeding, it seems like the focus is on achieving the perfect latch and getting baby to eat so many ounces. But we don't measure this when you're nursing. There's no way. How do you measure how much the baby is taking? You really can't. And then if you think about it, and because I too, those very first days trying to establish breastfeeding, focusing on the latch, of course, because that's what you hear, and then you watch videos and you're trying to have your baby do exactly what those videos were doing. And then I was thinking, but we don't all eat the same way. I don't hold my fork the same way somebody else does, and we all eat different amounts of food. So why do we want babies to eat exactly the same in the same way and exactly the same amount? Again, education for health professionals is needed so that support and care during the fourth trimester is not a family thing, it's not a cultural thing, but instead it can be best practice for maternal health.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating, and I think I'm just wondering, and this could be a loaded question, but why in the US do you think that this is something that isn't as common, of a time to respect or a time to kind of lay low? Because I know, even my friends that have had kids, it's like this, you got to get back to it like right away. Obviously there's a week or two when it's just, you can't really do anything, but I'm always very surprised at how fast people seem to want to bounce back, right? Mm-hmm. Because to me, it seems like, why would you want to? Just take it easy. Like, you've done a lot in the last 9 months. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Yeah. So I have this information too on the next question, I guess. Pause. If I can still talk about it here if you want, or I can just say something brief about it. What do you want me to do?
You can just talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, and that's a very good question, because I used to wonder the same thing, kind of personally. I've always been very attuned to my intuition, and I feel that that is how my parenting style started. Just kind of really trying to feel what was right, or what I needed to change, or what my baby needed, or what my body needed. And then, of course, I started reading more about healing and recovery in the fourth trimester. And then in our, kind of learned, or this information got reinforced in our society. We value things like productivity, independence, much more than we value resting, nurture, self-care. And so if you think about it, productivity and independence are masculine traits, whereas rest, nurture, self-care are feminine traits. So in our society, we value masculinity much more than femininity. And so even as women, even as modern women, even if you think of yourself as a feminist, you've learned to be this feminist who embraces masculinity, while we don't have the opposite going on, men who are feminists. And if we really want to honor and respect each other as equal, and both men and women have feminine and masculine traits, feminine and masculine energies, but we tend to value the masculine ones more because that's what society has taught us years after years after years. So even if we are trying to have equality, be feminist, this and that, but we are trying to be that from kind of this masculine energy, and not regarding the feminine energy as also very valuable and important. I think that maybe that would be where it kind of stems from. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. I think that's very true. And we bump up against that in so many different ways, and we talk about that in so many different ways on this podcast. Just that it's societal, that there's like this pressure from external forces that overrides our internal instincts, I would say. And that when we're constantly asking the external world to tell us what to do, the fourth trimester, and probably all of pregnancy really, but like that's a really good time to start tapping into your intuition, because especially if it's the first time, I can imagine you are like, what the heck do I do? This is all new to me. Yeah. I've seen people do it. I've read about it, but I've never actually done it myself. And so that's like a wonderful time, I'm sure, to tap into, those intuitive tendencies that.
Yeah. And like you said, we, kind of our intuition is silenced so much when we are trying to do and be productive, and we see productivity and we see success as, I don't know, making money, doing things, staying busy. That's what we associate with success. And I remember being pregnant and hearing things like, oh, you want to have a natural birth, but are you sure that your baby is going to fit through your pelvis? And I was just like, what? And are you sure you're going to be able to breastfeed? And just all these kind of, I don't know if they were, what the intention was, but it just kind of made me, shut down from all this external information and really tune in and really kind of connect more to that feminine energy, to our innate wisdom with birthing. And birthing has been done forever. Obstetrics is a very, very relatively new area. So what were women doing before that? Well, we were birthing in our homes with other women who were helping us birth, and we didn't need any intervention. So what's going on now? We are just kind of learning to grow afraid of pregnancy, afraid of childbirth. But yeah, that's another topic.
Well, yeah, it's one of the most like empowering. I mean, if you think about it in terms of, feminine power, like that is one of the most tangible, evidence-based like things that the world can witness and be like, oh, women are strong. Oh, women are responsible for giving birth to every single person on this planet.
Exactly.
Like, that's a little scary for people who aren't, who might not want women to feel powerful.
Mhm. Mhm.
So get afraid of it, be afraid of it. Anyway, tangent, but
Get afraid of it. I like that. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
yeah, well, people, be very afraid of childbirth because, oh my God, like if you actually even understood one fraction of the power of what that means,
Mhm.
that can be scary if you're scared. I mean, if you're scared of it, if you're scared of
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I love this idea of, birth from start to finish, from the first trimester all the way through the fourth and beyond. I mean, mothering is such a beautiful way to really tap into and practice your feminine tendencies and to encourage and almost allow that energetic side of you to grow and blossom, because there is so much suppression of it.
Yes.
And so how can we empower, both as a pregnant woman ourselves and as a society, how can we empower women to where am I going with this, to
Embrace.
give themselves permission, permission to slow down and to just tap into their feminine energy?
Mhm. That's a good question, and it's also a hard one. I mean, it's different for everyone. I think some women are much more tapped into their, inwardly, their intuitions, and others are a lot more disconnected without realizing it. I think it goes back to education for everybody. If everybody, healthcare professionals, partners, I don't know, even the workforce, I guess, because they have to support us through that fourth trimester too. If everybody is just more knowledgeable and really understands and honors and respects motherhood and the feminine energy and the fourth trimester, then we can really, really start kind of removing those barriers that we've set for ourselves that we might not realize we have, because again, feminine traits tend to be looked at as weak or even inconvenient. I mean, we see maternity as a what do they call it, short-term disability. um, and just kind of shifting our view, shifting this idea that masculine traits and doing and producing and bringing home an income is what a successful person does. I think that's where the change would start. But again, it's very long term and yeah.
It is. And I think that it's so important that we have the conversation of the fourth trimester, and that terminology and that knowledge is just like well known. It's part of it. It's talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you kind of briefed a little bit about, do you want to talk about, is there any more that you'd like to talk about what's really important during the fourth trimester, or would you rather kind of go towards what's normal and not normal for birthing?
We can talk a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I would love that.
Okay, so again, we were talking about feminine energy in regards to pregnancy and the postpartum period. And again, in the book I've been mentioning, the fourth trimester, Kimberly Ann Johnson goes deeply into this. And so, we were saying feminine traits tend to be undervalued in our society, and we give productivity, rationality, and independence, which are all masculine personality traits, priority, as if this is it. These are the markers of success. We give birth and we feel an urge, like you were saying, Clara, to go back to being ourselves, to doing our jobs, to fitting into our clothes, to do. Yet feminine traits like sensitivity, caring, nurturance, intuition are the ones that we need to be tuned into the most during pregnancy and childbirth. And if you think about it, and again, Clara, this has to do with what you said, it is these traits, the feminine ones, that are responsible for creating life for our very existence. and we undervalue them. We see them as weak or inconvenient, like I was saying, when it is with a strong intuition, with high sensitivity and unconditional nurturance that we create and give life. And we raise humans. You know, we wouldn't be able to do these things if we weren't tapped into our feminine energies. This is very worthy of honoring and very worthy of admiration. So what do we focus on? Again, if we are strongly attuned to our bodies and our babies, we can usually sense what to do. If we also look at science, our bodies do better when we allow them to rest and recover. So childbirth is a huge physiological and emotional event, and it takes time to find a sort of homeostasis again. Any scars or injuries are still healing. Organs are shrinking back to their regular size and finding their place where there is now a lot of space. Hormones are trying to figure out what is going on, and they are over-secreting or dropping just to play it safe. Mom is trying to bond with her baby to maintain sanity while sleep deprived, and trying not to think about having a bowel movement because it is the scariest thought after you after you have a baby. It really is. There's a huge disconnection with your pelvic floor. Everything is swollen, maybe painful, and you don't even want to think about going to the bathroom. But, you know, we don't need to go through it alone. So as modern and independent as we may be, the time after childbirth is a time to recognize that we too need to be cared for and nurtured. And it is in our best interest for our physical and emotional well-being to surround ourselves with people who make us feel safe, at ease, cared for, and loved. And then the other things I was going to mention are from the book, but I don't have to go over them.
Well, one thing that I love, and I just wanted to use as an example, was my sister, after having Minnie came in February. Mm-hmm. And so Melissa technically, you know, luckily she's a professor, so she has her summers off. So Minnie was born, she technically had the 3 months, but that led into summer. And I just remember watching her as a mother in her 4th trimester, not knowing what that was at the time, but just thinking like she went back to Texas and back to school in September. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, how do moms go back after 3 months? Mm-hmm. You know, like I watched Melissa need not only those 3 months, but the entire summer and need myself and my mom there. Mm-hmm. And I just, it was such an eye opener. And I just, like, I am so passionate about making sure that after seeing that, just making sure that women have the time that they need. And that too, like, how is that so individualized, or how is that so streamlined? Like it's an individual thing. One person might feel really good about 3 months. Like mm-hmm. my banker, luckily she works in a place where she can bring her baby in because they own it. But like she was feeling good and ready to go back a month after. But then I have other people like my sister who really needed a lot more time. Mm-hmm. So it is even interesting where we come up with this like 3 month thing.
Right. And it's usually, you know, you get 3 months from work, but it's usually not paid. So then you're also you have to plan for it. Hopefully in some way you can prepare for it. So yeah, there's not a lot of support. You just kind of have to figure it out. I was lucky. I didn't get paid maternity leave, but I could take as much time as I wanted. And my husband did get paid maternity leave or family leave. So he was here for 6 weeks, which I don't know. I'm so thankful for. I mean, I don't know women who have to be alone from the start. I don't know how they do it, but yeah.
You know, that kind of leads me into one thing that is, I feel it's very common, and maybe you can share it, like statistics or just so much knowledge about it, but the postpartum depression, and like that seems like a real, like, I mean, something that a lot of women experience. And I think that that's where the community is so important, that we recognize that. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of go into a little bit about what's that's about and how to approach it and how to be okay with it and maybe like accept it in a way? Or
yeah, so So when we talk about postpartum depression, that is the clinical diagnosis, and it's very, very serious. And I'll talk about it a little bit. But it's also important to note that there are other things that, we need to kind of differentiate. So, like postpartum blues, postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis. So there are different things. Of course, we usually call them all postpartum depression, but it's important to differentiate. When it is postpartum depression, it's a very serious condition. So the first thing that a woman should do is to seek help from their preferred provider. It could be their physician, it could be a psychologist or psychiatrist, and it's usually if they're experiencing symptoms for at least 2 weeks, or if they're getting worse. Now, if you're experiencing any of this, and you're trying to honor the 4th trimester, and you're trying to connect with your baby, I think this is a time then when we should make an exception, and we should care for ourselves first. Because if you're having postpartum depression, or even baby blues, or any of these, trying to care for yourself, connect with your baby, might just cause more frustration and further exacerbate the symptoms of the condition. And it's not good for mom, and it's not good for baby. So I really believe, like they say, put your oxygen mask first. You need to be in a good place, or at least feel supported, so that things can go better, as far as healing, as far as bonding with your baby. Hopefully whoever you reach out to is also concerned with the root cause, and it's not just going to medicate you. So, are you feeling this way because, I don't know, you're nervous about your baby, or, is it physiological, like a hormonal imbalance? Is it psychological or emotional? Are you feeling overwhelmed with it all? Are you feeling alone? Are you lacking support? What's going on? And so, one thing I've also learned that reaching out to local support groups with other moms is a great way to improve the symptoms of postpartum depression or baby blues or whatever it is. Because like I was saying, moms really, really do unite. Moms look out for each other because nobody understands what you're going through except other moms. So it's a really good idea to reach out to local mom groups. And you can sometimes do that through Facebook. Yeah. I wish I could say, sorry?
Oh. So there's kind of like a difference between, like, postpartum depression would be something that is very, like, longer term, more severe, and then there's something called baby blues that is just maybe more of like hormonal drop, and then, or it's overwhelm almost.
Yeah, some of the symptoms may be similar, but postpartum depression is going to last longer, or the symptoms are going to be getting worse over time. I'm not an expert on that. Mm-hmm. I do provide emotional support, but it is with women who are not officially diagnosed or going through any serious conditions. It's more of, kind of.
Because I would think that the huge change in hormones could drastically affect your mood. So yes. It's probably pretty normal to have, like,
some degree of baby blues or anxiety.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it just, like, so much of this does keep coming back to community. So I think that's so important, it seems. But let's see. And then I guess, the other things, one thing, okay, pause. So one thing that I also, maybe you could touch on, is you did talk a little bit about, like, hopefully the person you connect with, if you're dealing with anything in this 4th trimester that needs to be addressed, mm-hmm. is very much about the root cause and approaching it from a very holistic view. Is there anything that can really allow women to stay in more of a natural approach as they go through the fourth trimester and, becoming a mother and all that stuff? Are there any tools or things that they can be doing?
After having a baby? Yeah. So do you want me to talk about reaching out to other professionals here as well?
Well, there's a little bit of a list here.
Uh-huh.
Or even like WHOT.
That's Women's Health Occupational Therapy.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing that, or I'm a firm believer, I guess, in education and in reading, and some books that you could read. Now, it's really tricky when you already have a baby to find some time to read. The way I've balanced that is I've switched from books to audiobooks, and that is how I actually get through books now, or podcasts. But I want to mention some recommended readings that will really, really help you prepare during pregnancy, for childbirth, and then also for the fourth trimester. And these are all books I've read. And so I want to recommend them because they're just beautiful, and they're really, really invaluable, and the information and the confidence that they bring to women. So one of them is Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, and maybe Melissa also recommended that one. And then Mindful Birthing by Nancy Bardacke is, I think I can say it's my favorite for pregnancy readings. Hypnobirthing, and this one also has to do a lot with tapping with your intuition, sort of like removing those negative labels that we associate childbirth with, and a lot of mindfulness and things like that. And then, of course, The Fourth Trimester by Kimberly Ann Johnson is really, really going to prepare you for the period after childbirth. And even if you've already had a baby, it's still going to give you some tools that you can use. I just read this one a few months ago. I mean, my baby was already older than a year, and I was still like, wow, this book is amazing. And then The Birth Partner, if you want your partner to get on board, to just understand what's going on, to understand the process of pregnancy and childbirth. If you plan for your partner to be present during childbirth, that book is really good. And then also when you're pregnant, you can reach out to childbirth educators. I'm learning that women usually go to whatever their hospital provides, whatever childbirth class. And it's like I think it's like a one-day thing. So what I refer to when I say childbirth education is the more thorough classes. And those are usually called, or I'll just list a few. So the Bradley Method, Birth Boot Camp, mindfulness-based childbirth and parenting, which is what Nancy Bardacke kind of started, the one that wrote Mindful Birthing, and Hypnobirthing. So you can search for these online, and usually they have the locations available to see if one of these courses is available in your area. These tend to go a little longer. You meet once a week, and it can last, I don't know, from 4 to 10 weeks. We did the Bradley Method because that's what we had available here. And we did it with Brandy, who's a local doula. And it lasted for, I think, 10 weeks. And it sounds like a lot. We would meet on Saturdays, but we would look forward to those Saturdays because it's a time when, I mean, sometimes we're like, I mean, what can I learn about pregnancy? We already know it's 9 months, 3 trimesters, we wait for the baby, and then childbirth, blah, blah, blah. No, it's really empowering. There is so much to learn. And when you're going with this, if your partner can go with you to childbirth classes, it just creates this very strong bond because you both are learning about what's going on inside your body, and your partner is learning how to maybe offer comfort, during those last months when it feels like you can't find any comfort and you have pain all over and you can't sleep. Your partner may also learn how to comfort you during labor. Because really when you're in labor, you want to focus on kind of just being connected with your body, with kind of feeling what to do, and you don't want to think about the logistics. So, you can leave your partner with that responsibility. But I really, really encourage that. It is invaluable as far as feeling empowered, feeling educated, knowing your options as far as where can you birth, what sounds like it would be a good place for you to have your baby, interventions offered, and if they're necessary, what are the alternatives, things like that. What the hospitals do, what the protocol is not necessarily what's best for mom always. Sometimes, childbirth has been so medicalized. The C-section rate in the country and in South Texas is very, very high, when a lot of it is unnecessary, when what seems like a minor intervention just leads to another and another, and then you end up with an emergency C-section. And that reminds me, there's a really good documentary, probably Melissa mentioned it too, The Business of Being Born. That's a really good place to start as well.
Oh my gosh, there's so many good resources in there.
Yes.
And there were so many podcasts, and I was like, oh, we should do that for a podcast. Like being empowered during your pregnancy. I think that would be a really good one. But, well, Karla, where can they find and where can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, my website is Feminae Health, FEMINAE health.com. And then on there you can find my Facebook page. My Instagram handle is also at Feminae Health. And then I write blog posts on Facebook. I share relevant articles about pregnancy and childbirth or the postpartum period. I am getting more disciplined about writing regular blog posts, so do subscribe as I'll be adding more bi-weekly. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Well, you are just a wealth of knowledge, and we're so, so grateful that you could come on and share all of it with our listeners. And we'll be connecting everybody to anything that that you recommended today, and also to your website. So thank you so much for coming on, Karla. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me, and I love talking about this and sharing about this. So thank you for having me.
Yes.